It was one of those mornings when the city felt heavier than usual, the air thick with the scent of rain, coffee, and tension. I had joined the company just 6 months ago, and every day still felt like an audition. My name was Emily Carter, and at 26, I was still figuring out how to make my place in a world that often forgot to slow down. The boardroom smelled faintly of old wood and ambition. 12 chairs surrounded a long glass table that reflected the gray sky outside. I sat quietly, flipping through presentation slides, making sure every chart and number was flawless. Today's meeting was with Mr. Alexander Reed, the company's managing director, brilliant, intense, and, if I was being honest, intimidating in every possible way. He entered the room exactly at 9 a.m., not a minute late. Tall, confident, wearing a dark suit that matched the seriousness in his eyes. "Good morning, everyone," he said, his deep voice echoing slightly. "Let's begin." For the next hour, I presented the marketing proposal I'd spent weeks perfecting. My voice trembled at first, but as I went on, I could feel his gaze, steady, analytical, unreadable. When the meeting ended, everyone filed out, their chatter fading down the hallway. I began gathering my notes, relieved it was over. "Emily," his voice stopped me. "Stay for a moment." I froze. The last person in the world I expected to talk to me alone was him. He waited until the door closed behind the last executive, then turned toward me. Slowly, deliberately, he walked to the door and clicked it shut. The soft click echoed louder than thunder in my ears. For a second, neither of us spoke. The silence was sharp, almost fragile. "You did well today," he finally said, leaning against the table. "Your proposal, it was thoughtful. Fresh." "Thank you, sir," I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. He studied me for a moment, as if trying to read something beyond the words I had said. "Do you always doubt yourself this much, Emily?" The question caught me off guard. I just want to make sure I'm doing everything right," I replied honestly. He smiled slightly. "That's what makes you good. But confidence, that's what will make you great." Something in the way he said it, calm, sincere, made my heart race. I wasn't used to being seen like that, especially by someone like him. "I appreciate that," I said, lowering my eyes. "Look at me when you talk, Emily." It wasn't an order, it was a request. His tone was warm, not demanding. I lifted my gaze and found his eyes, deep, thoughtful, with something human hidden behind all that authority. For the next few minutes, he asked about my ideas, my goals, what I wanted from this job. We talked not as boss and employee, but as two people trying to understand each other. His words were measured, but his attention felt genuine. Then his phone rang. He glanced at it, silenced it, and smiled softly. "Seems the world doesn't like it when I slow down." I laughed quietly. "Maybe the world needs to catch up to you." That made him chuckle, a sound I'd never imagined he could make. "Careful, Emily," he said. That almost sounded like a compliment. Maybe it was, I replied before I could stop myself. The air between us shifted, not with tension, but awareness. A recognition of something unspoken. Neither of us dared to name it. He finally straightened his jacket and said, "You can go now." And, "Emily." "Yes. Next time you present," he said, "trust yourself a little more. You don't need anyone's permission to shine." I smiled. "I'll remember that." As I left the boardroom, my pulse was still racing. The office looked the same, desks, screens, and distant chatter, but everything inside me felt different. That closed door wasn't just a boundary, it was the beginning of something I couldn't yet define. That night, I replayed the conversation in my mind, his tone, his eyes, his words. It was ridiculous, I told myself. He was my boss. It was just a professional compliment. And yet, why did it feel like something more? The next few weeks passed in a blur of meetings, deadlines, and late-night emails. But beneath all the noise, something had changed, quietly, invisibly, between Mr. Reed and me. It wasn't spoken of, never acknowledged, yet it lingered in every glance, every word exchanged across the office. He wasn't just my boss anymore. He had become a mystery I couldn't stop thinking about. Every time he entered the floor, I felt it, that pull. He'd pause by my desk, ask about a project, or offer advice in that calm, steady tone that could make even the most stressful moment feel safe. And when he left, I'd catch my breath, realizing how deeply I was sinking into something I shouldn't. One Thursday afternoon, he sent me a message. Boardroom. 6 p.m. Bring the new proposal. My heart skipped. It wasn't unusual. Meetings after hours happened often, but something about the simplicity of that message felt personal. By 6, the office had thinned out. The sun had dipped low, painting the city in warm orange tones. I stood outside the boardroom door, holding the proposal like a shield. Taking a breath, I stepped in. He was already there, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, reviewing documents. The quiet hum of the air conditioner was the only sound. Right on time, he said without looking up. You're becoming predictable, Emily. I smiled faintly. That's better than being late, isn't it? He looked up then, eyes soft but focused. Not always. Predictable people rarely surprise me. You do. I felt heat rise to my cheeks. I don't mean to. I know, he said, standing and walking toward the window. That's what makes it dangerous. The words hung between us, sharp, heavy, and undeniable. I tried to focus on the papers. So, should we start with the projections? But his gaze didn't move from the window. You remind me of myself when I was younger, he said quietly. Too afraid to take up space. Too worried about making mistakes. That's not true, I said softly. I just don't want to disappoint anyone. He turned then, leaning against the window frame. Maybe you're afraid of being seen. Because once people see you, really see you, they expect more. His words hit deeper than I expected. It wasn't just about work, and we both knew it. I placed the proposal on the table. Maybe being seen isn't the problem, I said. Maybe trusting what comes after is. A silence followed, not awkward, but charged. Like the air, just before a storm. He walked closer, stopping just a few steps away. I could feel the tension, the kind that isn't loud but feels alive, like electricity in the air. You have no idea, he murmured, how rare it is to meet someone who speaks like that. I swallowed hard. You mean honestly? He smiled faintly. Yes. Honestly. The room felt smaller now, the world outside distant. For a second, it wasn't about roles or titles. It was just two people, both lonely in their own ways, who had somehow found understanding in each other. Then his phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He turned away, answering briskly, his voice shifting back into that professional tone I knew so well. When he hung up, the spell had broken. He cleared his throat. Let's get back to work. For the next hour, we discussed numbers, charts, and projections. It was business again, calm, focused, safe. But even in that safety, I could feel it, the undercurrent, quiet but strong. As I gather my things to leave, he said softly, Emily. I looked up. He hesitated. There's a conference next week in Paris. The board wants us to attend together. Together? I asked, heart skipping. Yes. It's a short trip. 2 days. You've earned it. I nodded, trying to act professional, though inside, 1,000 thoughts collided. Thank you, sir. I'll prepare everything. He gave a faint smile. And, Emily. Yes? He paused, eyes searching mine. You don't have to call me sir after hours. The way he said it, quiet, personal, made the air thicken. I nodded, unable to speak, and walked out before my thoughts betrayed me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound, every memory of his words, replayed like a song stuck in my head. You remind me of myself. Maybe you're afraid of being seen. And finally, you don't have to call me sir. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was something that could become it if I wasn't careful. Paris was cold that week, the kind of chill that crept under your skin and made every moment feel alive. The flight had been quiet, filled with polite conversation about meetings and strategies. Yet, beneath every exchange, there was an unspoken current, a pulse that neither of us could ignore. When the car dropped us off at the hotel, the city glowed under golden streetlights. Mr. Reed, or Alexander, as he'd insisted I call him, carried his composure like a second skin. Always calm. Always unreadable. Conference starts at 9, he said as we reached the lobby. Get some rest. Big day tomorrow. I nodded, forcing a smile. Good night, Alex. He hesitated for a moment before walking away, a faint smile ghosting across his lips. I should have left it there, professional, simple. But something about Paris made restraint harder. The next morning, I woke early and looked out the window. The Eiffel Tower shimmered faintly in the distance. The city felt like a dream, one you didn't want to wake from. At the conference, everything went perfectly. Our presentation was smooth, the clients impressed. Yet every time our eyes met across the room, the world narrowed until only he existed. When it was over, he approached me. You were brilliant, he said quietly. Thank you, I replied. I guess I learned from the best. He gave a small laugh. Careful, that almost sounds like flattery again. We both smiled, the kind of smile that said we're both pretending this is normal. Later that evening, the company arranged a dinner cruise on the Seine. The river reflected the city lights, the sound of soft jazz floating in the air. Everyone laughed and mingled, glasses clinking. But all I could feel was his presence, 2 tables away, his gaze finding mine again and again, until I could no longer breathe. After dessert, I stepped out onto the deck for some air. The city stretched before me, glittering and endless. Then I heard his voice behind me. Couldn't sleep? I turned. He was there, no tie, no distance, just a man and a heartbeat. I just needed a moment, I said. Everything feels unreal here. He nodded. Paris does that to people. Silence followed, soft but full. The wind played with a strand of my hair, and he reached out, hesitating before tucking it gently behind my ear. His touch was brief, careful, but it lingered. Emily, he said finally, I've been trying to ignore this whatever this is. But every time I do, it just finds me again. I felt my pulse quicken. You're my boss, I whispered. I know, he said. And that's why this can't go anywhere. But tell me you don't feel it too. I wanted to deny it, to step back into safety, but my silence gave me away. He sighed, his voice low. You're too talented, too bright to be caught in my shadow. I swallowed hard. Maybe it's not about shadows, Alex. Maybe it's about light. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The city glowed, the boat drifted, and time stopped. Then, as if realizing the danger of the moment, he stepped back. You deserve a future built on your own name, he said quietly. Don't let me blur that. I looked at him, eyes burning. And what about you? He smiled sadly. Maybe this, whatever it is, will be something I carry quietly, like a song I never finish. The night ended without another word. The next morning, we flew back. The silence between us wasn't cold. It was full of everything we couldn't say. When the plane landed, he turned to me and said softly, Thank you for being exactly who you are. Back at the office, things returned to normal, meetings, schedules, polite hellos. Yet, every now and then, our eyes would meet, and the memory of Paris would flicker like a secret only we knew. Weeks later, I got promoted. My new office had a view of the skyline, a view that once belonged to him. He had moved to another branch, suddenly, quietly. On his last day, there was an envelope on my desk. No name, no address. Inside, a small note written in familiar handwriting. Some stories are meant to stay between closed doors, but they still change us forever. AR. I sat there for a long time, watching the city outside blur through my tears. It wasn't a love story in the traditional sense, no promises, no forever. But it was real. It was something that reminded me that connection, no matter how brief, can alter the way you see the world. And sometimes, the strongest bonds are the ones we never speak of, the ones that live quietly in the spaces between words.